Before dawn, the fog rolls in from San Pablo Bay and clings to the floodlights like smoke. Steel plates lie stacked in neat, towering rows, each one cold, gray, and heavy enough to crush a man if mishandled. The air smells of oil, wet metal, and ozone from arc welders already crackling awake. Somewhere, a whistle blows. It is not a call to attention. It is a signal that time itself has begun to move faster here. At the center of the yard stands a man in a plain overcoat, his hat pulled low against the chill. Henry J. Kaiser is not a naval officer. He wears no uniform, carries no rank. Yet men step aside when he walks past, and foremen lower their voices when he stops to watch. He does not look at the water. He looks at the ground, at chalk lines drawn directly onto the concrete, outlining the ghost of a ship that does not yet exist. In Washington, naval planners still think in terms of slipways and rivets. They imagine ships rising slowly, keel first, over months of careful labor. But here, in the half-light of Richmond, Kaiser is imagining something else entirely. He is imagining a ship assembled the way Detroit builds automobiles, piece by piece, station by station, without pause. The war has not yet reached American shores, but it is already devouring tonnage at an impossible rate. In the North Atlantic, German U-boats are sinking Allied merchant ships faster than they can be replaced. Every freighter lost is not just steel and fuel, it is food that never reaches Britain, tanks that never reach North Africa, ammunition that never reaches the front. The numbers on the Navy Department's ledgers are turning red. Kaiser knows those numbers. He has read them, and he has decided that the problem is not courage or funding. The problem is time. A welding torch flares to life beside him, blue-white and blinding. Two men guide a massive steel panel into position with hand signals and shouted commands. There is no rivet gun, no hammering chorus. Instead, the torch traces a glowing seam, fusing metal to metal in seconds. The weld cools quickly in the damp air, leaving behind a dark, hardened scar. This is heresy to old shipbuilders: welding instead of riveting, prefabricated sections instead of hand-fitted frames. Workers trained in weeks, not years. But Kaiser does not come from shipyards. He comes from dams and highways, from projects where scale and speed are the only things that matter. He turns to one of his managers, a former construction superintendent named Edgar Kaiser, his son. "How long did this section take?" he asks, his voice flat, already calculating. 6 hours, Edgar replies, from delivery to final weld. Henry Kaiser nods once. 6 hours for a section that would normally take days, and this is only the beginning. Around them, the yard is divided into zones like a factory floor. In one area, teams cut steel plates to standardized dimensions. In another, bulkheads are assembled indoors, protected from weather, lit by electric lamps instead of daylight. Cranes swing overhead, lifting completed modules, entire rooms of a ship, into place as if they were parts of a child's toy. There is noise everywhere, the hiss of torches, the groan of cranes, the shouted cadence of foremen keeping dozens of crews moving in rhythm. But beneath it all is a deeper sound, the steady, relentless beat of production. Kaiser walks past a group of new workers waiting for instruction. Some are farm boys from the Midwest. Others are former clerks, mechanics, even homemakers. Many have never seen the ocean before today. One woman adjusts her gloves nervously as a supervisor explains welding safety in clipped, urgent tones. Kaiser watches them closely. He does not see inexperience. He sees numbers. Tens of thousands of hands that can be trained quickly, placed precisely, and replaced without halting the flow. Skill in his system is not a rare treasure, it is a process. A black sedan pulls up near the administrative office. A man steps out wearing a Navy lieutenant commander's uniform. He pauses, taking in the scale of the operation, the unfinished hull sections rising simultaneously from multiple positions rather than a single keel. His expression tightens, not with awe, but with uncertainty. This is not how ships are supposed to be built. The officer approaches Kaiser and introduces himself. He asks the question that has followed Kaiser from one shipyard to the next. "Mr. Kaiser," he says carefully, "do you really believe you can build an ocean-going cargo ship this way?" Kaiser does not answer immediately. He gestures toward the yard, toward the glowing welds, the moving cranes, the workers streaming in as the sun finally begins to burn through the fog. "I don't believe it," Kaiser says at last. "I'm counting on it." Somewhere out in the bay, the tide shifts, and with it, the future of industrial warfare begins to turn. Henry Kaiser does not wait for approval. That is the first rule he lives by, and it has carried him from gravel pits to the Hoover Dam, from failed ventures to vast fortunes. In the weeks after that fog-soaked morning in Richmond, the shipyard does not slow, it accelerates. The chalk lines on the concrete multiply. Steel arrives by rail in a constant, grinding procession. Every delay is measured, charted, attacked. Kaiser's office overlooks the yard, but he rarely sits in it. He walks, he watches, he asks questions that unsettle men who have spent their lives building ships the old way. Why does this crew wait for that one to finish? Why are these parts stored here instead of next to the crane? Why does this job require 3 specialists when one trained worker could do it tomorrow? To traditional shipbuilders, the answers are obvious. To Kaiser, they're excuses. In Washington, skepticism hardens into resistance. Naval architects send letters warning that welded hulls will crack in heavy seas. Admirals remind anyone who will listen that ships are not automobiles. They are complex living structures shaped by forces Kaiser has never faced. Kaiser reads the letters, then he pins production charts to his wall. The Liberty ship, officially designated the EC-2SC-1, is not elegant. She is 441 feet long, blunt-bowed, slow. Her triple-expansion steam engine is already obsolete by naval standards. But she is simple. She can be built with mild steel. She can be assembled from standardized parts. She is, Kaiser realizes, the perfect candidate for industrial replication. He brings in engineers not from shipyards, but from factories, men who think in terms of flow, not tradition. They redesign the construction sequence entirely. Instead of building the ship from the keel up, they break her into hundreds of modules, bow sections, midship blocks, stern assemblies, each built independently, simultaneously. If one module is delayed, the entire ship does not wait. The line keeps moving. On December 7, 1941, news crackles over radios across the yard. Pearl Harbor. By nightfall, floodlights burn brighter than ever before, and the clock becomes irrelevant. The United States is at war now, fully, brutally. The tonnage crisis is no longer theoretical. Ships are being sunk faster than the country has ever replaced them. Kaiser responds the only way he knows, by making promises others would never dare to put on paper. He tells the Maritime Commission he can deliver Liberty ships in under 2 months, then under 1. Then, when pressed, he sets a goal so outrageous it sounds like mockery: 10 days. The announcement ripples through the yard. Foremen exchange looks. Engineers quietly recalculate and shake their heads. Even Edgar Kaiser hesitates. But the old man does not flinch. He restructures the workforce into shifts that never stop. He standardizes tools, positions, movements. Each worker learns a narrow task, repeated until it becomes instinct. Welding schools spring up beside the yards, teaching thousands in weeks what once took years. Mistakes happen. Welds fail. Plates warp. A hull section cracks during testing, and word spreads quickly through the Navy Department. The critics pounce. Newspapers whisper about unsafe ships, about industrial arrogance. Kaiser orders inspections. He adjusts weld procedures. He does not abandon the method. He refines it. At Richmond, the yard becomes a city unto itself. Cafeterias operate around the clock. Child care centers open for women working swing and night shifts. Buses arrive every hour, unloading new labor drawn from every corner of the country. The workforce swells past 90,000. And then comes the demonstration. September 27, 1942, 1 year after Kaiser stood in the fog watching chalk lines on concrete, the yard gathers again, this time under clear skies. A Liberty ship named SS Robert E. Peary waits on the ways, her hull complete, her superstructure welded into place. The clock starts. Crews move with rehearsed precision. Sections arrive exactly when needed. Cranes swing, lower, release. Welders seal seams in practiced arcs of light. There is no shouting now, only signals, checklists, and motion. At 4 days, 15 hours, and 29 minutes, the last weld is complete. The ship slides into the water to stunned silence, followed by a roar that rolls across the bay. Kaiser does not smile, he simply checks his watch. The 10-day
January 1943, North Atlantic, midwinter. The sea is black and heaving, lit only by a sliver of moon and the faint glow of stars breaking through low cloud. A German U-boat commander peers through his periscope, breath fogging the eyepiece as he scans the convoy lanes. He expects emptiness, he expects scarcity. Instead, he sees silhouettes. Freighters, many of them. They move in steady columns, their blunt bows punching through icy swells. They are not fast, they are not graceful, but they are there, far more of them than intelligence reports predicted. Back in Richmond, Kaiser does not see the ocean, he sees graphs. The Maritime Commission now demands output numbers that would have seemed insane a year earlier. 1 Liberty ship every few days, then 1 per day, then more. The yards respond like a living organism adapting under pressure. Kaiser's managers dissect every delay down to the minute. A crane idle for 30 seconds becomes a problem to be solved. A worker walking too far for tools becomes a layout flaw. Even lunch breaks are staggered so production never fully stops. The ship itself evolves. Lessons from early failures are folded back into the line. Hull cracks traced to brittle steel are addressed with revised welding sequences and stress relief techniques. Engineers reinforce critical joints without slowing assembly. Quality control teams inspect modules before they ever reach the hull. The result is not perfection. Liberty ships will later earn a mixed reputation, some cracking, some breaking in heavy seas. But they float, they sail, and most importantly, they arrive. By mid-1943, Kaiser yards alone are launching ships faster than entire nations managed before the war. Each launch is a ritual now, a brief speech, a bottle of champagne. Then gravity takes over, and thousands of tons of steel rush into the water with a thunder that shakes windows miles away. The workers cheer, but there is no pause. Another hull is already waiting. Women make up more than a quarter of the workforce now, many operating heavy equipment once reserved for veteran tradesmen. Older supervisors who doubted them months earlier now rely on their precision. Immigrant laborers, Black Americans, rural migrants, all work side by side under the same lights, bound by shift whistles and production quotas. Kaiser's system leaves little room for individuality. A man is not hired for his name, but for his output. Yet for many, the yard offers something they have never known before: steady pay, purpose, and the knowledge that what they build will cross an ocean into history. In Washington, strategy adapts. Convoy planners grow bolder. Supply officers schedule operations that would have been impossible in 1941. In North Africa, then Italy, then Normandy, equipment flows in quantities that strain ports and roads. Every crate stamped USA traces its existence back to steel cut and welded in places like Richmond, Portland, and Savannah. German intelligence begins to grasp the problem too late. Reports circulate describing American shipbuilding rates as fantastical, exaggerated, propaganda. But U-boat captains know better. They see the evidence in their periscopes, new ships appearing faster than torpedoes can sink them. Admiral Karl Donitz demands higher kill ratios. He pushes his crews harder. Losses mount. By late 1943, the arithmetic is undeniable. The Allies are winning the tonnage war. not through a single battle, but through an assembly line. Henry Kaiser remains largely absent from the headlines. He is not a general. He does not attend victory parades. When reporters ask him about his achievement, he deflects. It's not me, it's the system. But systems do not build themselves. They are imposed, defended, and refined by people willing to ignore tradition when it becomes an obstacle. As the war grinds on, liberty ships are joined by faster victory ships, built using the same modular logic Kaiser helped normalize. The idea spreads beyond shipyards into aircraft factories, tank plants, and logistics depots. Speed, once a liability, has become a weapon. And in the background of it all stands the man in the plain coat, watching from the edge of the yard, already thinking about what comes next when the war finally ends, and whether the world will remember how close it came to losing the race against time.
Late 1943, North Pacific, heavy seas. A Liberty ship pitches hard, her bow slamming into gray water with a hollow metallic boom. Below deck, the hull groans, not loudly, but enough for the sound to carry through steel passageways like a warning. The temperature is near freezing. Spray coats the superstructure in ice. An engineer pauses mid-step, listening. Then comes the crack. It is not an explosion. It is a sharp, sudden report, like a rifle shot echoing through the ship's frame. Somewhere along the hull, a welded seam has failed. The fracture runs fast, driven by cold, stress, and brittle steel. Men scramble, pumps engage, damage control teams move instinctively, trained not for elegance, but for survival. The ship does not sink, most do not, but the incident will be logged, studied, and quietly added to a growing file back in Washington, one that critics of welded construction have been building since the first Liberty slid into the sea. By now, over 2,000 Liberty ships are in service. They are everywhere. North Atlantic, Arctic convoys to Murmansk, Pacific supply routes stretching thousands of miles. They are the backbone of Allied logistics, and they are being pushed hard, often beyond the conditions their designers imagined. The failures worry the Navy. Investigators discover that some fractures propagate catastrophically, running from deck to keel in seconds. Metallurgists trace the cause to notch sensitivity in the steel, exacerbated by low temperatures and rigid welded joints. The old riveters feel vindicated. In Richmond, Kaiser is shown the reports. He reads them without comment. Then he calls meetings. The solution is not to slow down. It is to adapt again. Engineers introduce crack arresters, steel straps riveted across critical seams to stop fractures from spreading. Welding techniques are adjusted to reduce residual stress. Steel specifications change as suppliers improve quality. The yards incorporate each fix without halting the line. This is the true strength of Kaiser's system, not speed alone, but feedback. Failure does not trigger abandonment, it triggers iteration. The Navy watches closely. What it sees is not recklessness, but controlled risk, measured against the alternative. Every month of delay costs ships. Every ship lost costs lives. A cracked hull that limps into port is preferable to no ship at all. By 1944, the worst structural failures declined sharply. Liberty ships continue to serve, carrying tanks, fuel, troops, and food into the heart of the Allied advance. Many will survive the war intact, their utilitarian lines becoming familiar sights in harbors around the world. Henry Kaiser himself remains restless. His attention drifts to new projects, aircraft carriers assembled in modules, aluminum fabrication, housing for returning veterans. He understands that the techniques proven under wartime pressure will not remain confined to war. In the shipyards, workers begin to sense the approaching end. Rumors circulate. Contracts will expire. Production will slow. Some fear unemployment, others plan for peace.
On August 14, 1945, news of Japan's surrender spreads through the yards like a wave. Whistles blow, not to mark a shift, but to mark an era. Men and women stop working and stand among half-finished hulls, unsure whether to cheer or simply breathe. The war is over. The tonnage crisis is gone, and with it the urgency that justified everything. Liberty ships continue to launch for a time, then taper off. Some will be sold, others scrapped. A few will sail on for decades, anonymous workhorses of global trade. Henry Kaiser does not give a victory speech. He does not ask for monuments. He returns to his office, already planning civilian projects on a scale only wartime experience could make seem normal. But history has a way of smoothing over the details, of remembering battles and generals while forgetting the factories that made victory possible. The question remains, when the war fades into memory, will anyone remember the man who turned shipbuilding into an assembly line and, in doing so, quietly tipped the balance of the largest conflict in human history? October 45, Richmond, California. The yards are quieter now. Floodlights still stand, but many remain dark. Cranes that once swung without rest hang motionless, their cables slack, their hooks rusting slightly in the salt air. Half-finished hull sections sit where they were abandoned, chalk numbers fading under sun and rain. Henry Kaiser walks the yard again. He is older now, his pace slower, but his eyes move the same way, measuring, comparing, imagining. There is no crowd around him, no officers, no reporters, just the echo of footsteps on concrete that once shook with production. The war has ended, and with it the urgency that made his methods indispensable. In Washington, planners turn their attention to demobilization. Contracts are canceled. Shipyards close almost as fast as they opened. Kaiser does not protest. He has never believed that systems should outlive their usefulness. Across the world, Liberty ships scatter. Some carry refugees home. Others haul surplus equipment to distant ports. A few are mothballed, sealed in reserve sheets, rows of identical hulls stretching across quiet anchorages like steel ghosts of a war already receding into history. Most people will never know their names: SS John W. Brown, SS Jeremiah O'Brien. They look the same as hundreds of others. That was the point. In history books, attention gravitates towards battles: Midway, Normandy, the Bulge. The slow, unglamorous war of logistics rarely earns more than a paragraph. Henry Kaiser appears, if at all, as a footnote, an industrialist, a contractor, not a hero in the traditional sense. Yet the world he helped build does not forget him, even if it does not speak his name. The principles proven in his yards spread everywhere. Modular construction becomes standard. Welding replaces riveting. Production lines adapt to ships, aircraft, and later entire cities. Post-war America builds highways, suburbs, and power plants with a confidence born in places like Richmond. Henry Kaiser himself turns to healthcare, founding what will become Kaiser Permanente, another system designed to scale, to serve masses rather than elites. It follows the same logic as his shipyards: standardization, efficiency, accessibility. When he dies in 1967, obituaries struggle to summarize him. He did too many things too quickly, in too many fields. The Liberty ships merit a sentence or two. But steel remembers. Some Liberty ships survive into the modern era, restored and preserved. Visitors walk their decks, run hands along welded seams, and read plaques describing how fast they were built. The numbers impress, the context often does not. Few imagine the foggy mornings, the chalk outlines on concrete, the untested idea that ships could be built the way cars were built. Fewer still imagine how close the Allies came to losing the tonnage war, and how different history might have been if production had moved even slightly slower. Henry Kaiser never commanded troops.
He never stood on a battlefield, but by turning months into days, he bent time itself in the Allies' favor. And in war, that can be decisive.